Also downstairs, you'll find some additional seating along the sides of the boat. Welcome aboard. So we're going to talk about a lot of architecture today, and like any great city, we'll talk about some history of Chicago as well. And along the benches or seats, including the benches in the back of the boat, no one should be standing on any benches. That includes children should also not be standing on the benches. And no smoking or vaping throughout the boat, and no climbing or sitting on the railings around the side of the boat. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, let's get going. Michigan Avenue or the river. This area where Michigan Avenue crosses the river is where Chicago began about 240 years ago. Up to 240 years ago, this area was in its natural form a low-lying marsh or swamp on the shores of Lake Michigan. Now, let's see here. Now the native Potawatomi were very familiar with the area. They passed through often on trade routes and hunting routes, both on the water and over land. And then in 1780, the first non-native settler arrived in what would become Chicago, Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable. We call him the founder of Chicago. In 1780, he built a log cabin trading post right there where the Apple Store is today on the left. Now, Du Sable was a French-speaking man of African descent who came here from Haiti, popularizing this location among the French explorers at the time. And the bridge right behind us is named the Du Sable Bridge after him. 20 years after Du Sable built that trading post, the United States built Fort Dearborn across the river from it. I'll tell you more about that later on. Now, if you look directly to our right, way up high, so behind this brown brick building, way up high, in a few seconds, you'll see a white rectangular tower. There it is, a white rectangular tower with granite tiles cladding all the way up to the roof there. That's the Aon Center. The Aon Center, that tall white rectangular building there, was built in 1973, designed by Edward Durrell Stone. It was originally the Standard Oil building, then the Amoco building, now the Aon Insurance Center. It was the tallest building in Chicago for 1 year. It's the fourth tallest building in Chicago today. Built in 1973, designed by Edward Durrell Stone, and originally he clad it with imported Italian Carrara marble. Wow. Very expensive stuff. It makes that whole thing glimmer in the sunlight beautifully. But after 9 years, those plates of marble, 3/4 of an inch thick, started to crack and fall to the sidewalk below. The city made the architecture firm reclad the building in a sturdier stone. It's Carolina granite today. The process of replacing the marble with the granite cost Edward Durrell Stone's firm $80 million. That was half what it cost to build the thing in the first place. It was an expensive mistake, and it goes to show, never take marble for granted. Oh yeah, pretty bold to open with that one. I want to let you know that my boss hates that joke. It takes real stones to tell it. And I'll admit that every once in a while my delivery can be a bit rocky. Now, if you look up and to the right, ahead of us and up to the right, there is a very tall blue glass tower. Very tall blue glass tower up to the right there with a wiggly shape. That's the St. Regis, Chicago. The St. Regis was finished in 2020. It is 1,200 feet or 365 meters tall, making it currently the third tallest building in the city of Chicago and the tallest building in the world designed by a woman, a lead female architect. That woman is Jeannie Gang. Her architecture firm, Studio Gang, is based right here in Chicago. Now, the St. Regis is 1,200 feet or 365 meters tall. It was finished in 2020. And if you look up near the top of the St. Regis, there are 2 floors missing. the architects decided not to build the interiors of the potential 84th or 85th floors, to instead let the wind blow through the steel frame there. That relieves the wind pressure on the walls, decreasing the amount it sways, increasing the value of the condos on top in two ways. It decreases the chance the windows could crack as the building flexes in the wind, and simply increases the value so that residents are not nauseated sitting on their couches when it's a bit breezy. That's called a blow-through floor. For the time being, it's a permanent feature of the St. Regis. Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Again, there's going to be lots of architecture for most of the tour, but I have a little bit more history of the city I want to talk about right now, and that's about the river itself. Now, in the city of Chicago's early days, we treated our river as any industrial city of the 19th century would treat a river. In a word, badly. We threw all of our waste, human, animal, industrial, into the river. The river flowed into Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan was and is our source of drinking water. By polluting the river, we were polluting the lake and poisoning ourselves. We knew we had to solve this problem. Being Chicagoan, we worked hard and tried our best to make it someone else's problem. Instead of solving the issue, we made the issue flow away from town by making the Chicago River, the only natural river in the world, permanently reversed by humankind. Here's how. Not far from the Chicago River to the west is the Des Plaines River, which flows away from the city to the southwest. To carry our waste away from town, we connected the Chicago to the Des Plaines by building a canal between them, named the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. And at 3 a.m., January 2nd, 1900, we blew up the back of Chicago River. It built in the canal, connected to the Des Plaines. Just a second. And the Des Plaines River sits at a lower elevation than the surface of the lake. So with the new lowest point to flow toward, the Chicago River reversed, taking water out of Lake Michigan to the southwest into the Des Plaines River. As our sewage flowed away, Chicagoans sat back saying, well done, innovation, clean water. Downstream, the city of St. Louis was less pleased with the new arrangement. St. Louis sued Chicago in federal court before we blew up the dam, fearful of our waste heading downstream to the Mississippi right where they are. The judge in the case said, St. Louis, you can't sue Chicago for something they haven't done yet, and threw out the case, at which point we blew up the dam. St. Louis sued us again, saying, well, now they've done it, and the judge in this one said, all right, St. Louis, tell me what does St. Louis do with its pollution and waste? And the St. Louisian said, we throw it in the Mississippi and it flows downstream from us. So if it's good enough for St. Louis, it's good enough for Chicago, said the judge, and he threw out that case too. Now, the pollution was a separate issue that was solved decades later, but after the St. Louis lawsuits failed, our neighbors around Lake Michigan, the states of Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin, all sued Chicago, not for pollution, but for draining the lake. And they proved that after 400 years, our reversed river would take so much water out of Lake Michigan, parts of it would no longer be navigable. And so we were forced to build the Chicago Harbor Lock. Right in front of us, separating the lake from the river via the only direct connection between the lake and the river, is a series of two steel gates. That's the Chicago Harbor Lock. It's on the right side of the boat, right in front of us, built in the 1930s for one reason, to slow down the flow of Lake Michigan's water from entering the still reversed Chicago River. Now, at this point, I'm going to get off the mic for just a couple minutes. This will be a brief little pause, just to let you move around and enjoy the beautiful view here. I'll get right back on the mic in a moment to continue the tour. Oh, and just a reminder, don't stand on any benches or seats. Thank you.